Good morning and welcome to the fourth annual Florida Climate Conference. This year, we're focused on climate and human health. For anyone who was here last year, we did something called the triple threat of water. And boy, we had no idea that we were going to have a trifecta of hurricanes just months later. So I guess we're being, we're doing what we're supposed to do, which is forecasting the future. And of course, that's a very hard thing to do. So anyway, I just want to welcome you all. We have a sellout crowd. This is we've never not had one. So our last ticket for this event sold at 2 a.m. And somebody bought lunch at 4 o'clock this morning. True story, I'm not kidding. So anyway, is William Cabaz here? So I just wanted to thank our sponsors first. Our season sponsor is Tommy's Car Wash, and my really good friend and board member, Dan Digraph, is right there. He's the president of Tommy's, and I'm sure all of your cars are clean because of him. And I know mine is clean because of him, because every time I see him, if there's any spots on it, he says, "Bob, get that car clean." So Dan, thank you so much. And I also, do I have any other board members in the room right now? If I do. Alex, could you stand, please? This is our millennial board member, Alex Gerhardt, and he's in charge of our Colorado operations, where we're trying to set up our second CAC, the Rocky Mountain CAC, and we're going through all the beginnings of that right now. Special thanks to the Barancic Foundation, Matt Sauer in the back of the room. Matt has been, he's been a great partner for the CAC. I don't know what happened. He saw one of my talks and he said, "Let's go." So, and boy, have we ever. So he's helped us propel ourselves into a new orbit. And of course, the Gulf Coast Community Foundation is a sponsor. WUSF, we couldn't do it without WUSF and the Sarasota Magazine. So we have some great sponsors, but really, one of the most important, of course, is the University of South Florida, where we stand right here. We do every single conference so far in this room, and we're hoping to do Hurricane Day 2025 in the new ballroom, which has just been built over in the new building. And, you'll all want to come to that one. So that's where we do our annual hurricane forecast. So, you may remember this if you were at the hurricane forecast. We forecast 12 hurricanes and 6 major hurricanes this year, and we've had 11 and 5, and there's sort of one. And I want to sing that song, Sarah, Sarah, Sarah. I don't know. Also, is Stephen High here this morning? Well, thank you to the Ringling for sponsoring our event last night. It was really wonderful. And I want to introduce the climate champions in residence here. So could all the climate champions who are here please stand up so I can see who's here? All right, in the back row, Jessica Mazzeros. She won a Climate Champions Awards for her reporting for WUSF and NPR. Bill, where are you? Bill Waddell. Bill, of course, helped us make the Bay what it is today, and we're not done yet. Thank you, Bill. And David and Jennifer Schaefer. They're engineers here in town, and they run the Science and Environment Council, and they won together a Climate Champion Award. So we have 3 climate champions. And the idea of the Climate Champions really is to honor those who have made a sustained impact on our area through climate adaptation. And after all, this is the Climate Adaptation Center. So now I want to introduce our CAC members. Who is ever a CAC member in the room, could you please stand? All of these people make what we do possible. Thank you so much. Without our membership, we could not do our outreach, we could not do our work. And so we're a not-for-profit organization, but that does not mean we don't need money. Some people think that's true, but it isn't true. I wish it was true. But the only money that we take are public donations. We take no government money because we want to be loud and clear with our message without any disruption for any reason whatsoever. And I also just noticed that one of my good friends and my co-host for the Climate Champions Awards and our founding director of the CAC, Elizabeth Moore, just walked in the door. And also our other director, Tom Lewis, who is 2 minutes late. Tom. Tom is the president of Tidal Basin, which is one of the biggest response companies in the United States responding to hurricanes. He's a resilience engineer. And we are very, very pleased to have him on our board too. So we have this incredible board of directors of business people, philanthropists, scientists. So we really have a wonderful board. We keep it small so that we can all dial each other's phone number without going through the Rolodex, you know. So thank you very much. And now I want to start with a little background on the CAC.
The Climate Adaptation Center is dedicated to translating the latest climate science into usable information so that decision makers can make risk-appropriate decisions to help protect our communities and environment against the growing impacts of climate warming. It's beginning to sink in after that trifecta of hurricanes this year, occurring just after the hottest, driest year in Sarasota history. Every year, we host 3 major events, including the Florida Climate Conference, where we share vital research and insights from leaders in climate science and local and national experts. Our CAC Climate Champions Award ceremony recognizes the champions in our community who are making a real difference in our fight against climate warming and showing everyone that we can meet the threat not only with optimism, but with adaptation strategies that work. And our famous Hurricane Day. Every year, it's the first hurricane season forecast in the entire country. The CAC is involved in numerous community projects, like protecting our shorelines, supporting Bayshore Park climate-driven restoration, and serving on the Purple Ribbon Committee, helping to repurpose the Van Wezel Performing Arts Center for our current and future climate. These are key initiatives aimed at safeguarding our future. We're even providing insight to design Sarasota's 2050 plan, collaborating with condo associations and local homeowners and our city's government. We also work with local homeowners to make smart decisions and build a more resilient future for their family. And we work hand in hand with local decision makers, from government leaders to foundations and universities, to find solutions to lower the climate risk we face. This is all possible thanks to members like you and those who support our mission with monthly donations. Your contributions give us the resources we need to make a real impact, providing critical information on the local impact of sea level rise, hurricanes, excessive precipitation, red tide, biodiversity, and climate and human health. Join us today and be part of the solution. With our award-winning website and a team of scientists, we're committed to lowering our risks and adapting to a changing climate. Visit our website by scanning this QR code to become a member. We can only achieve our mission for our community with the support of people like you. Together, we will adapt and create a resilient and prosperous future.
Well, thank you, and I thank you, Rick, for that wonderful, because now I don't have to beg. So now I want to introduce Karen Holbrook, who is the chancellor here at the University of South Florida and a member of the CAC herself. And she's been a constant 100% partner for the CAC since day one, actually before day one. So Karen, would you like to?
Thanks, Bob. That was a terrific video. Really, really, really good. It says what you do so beautifully. It's really funny. I went up to my office to pick up a folder so I could take some notes. Opened it up, and what did I find? You know, I obviously haven't been taking notes for a long time because this is from last April, the hurricane season forecast day. And it has been such a thrill, such a privilege, actually, to have the CAC here every year. David Kotok introducing it. In fact, we go back a long time with David taking us down to look at what happened with one of the hurricanes together. So I'm also thinking about, as I looked at this, I'm thinking, Bob, you're really much too good at this. We really don't want to know. It's going to happen, but this year was really something else. And I remember last year watching you as you were giving some slides of what had happened down at Fort Myers and thinking, oh my gosh, isn't this amazing? Isn't this something? And then what happened? I live on Longboat Key, and we saw exactly the same kind of thing. I mean, what a story that is told, and you're so believable. That's really a shame. So be a little lighter. Be a little lighter this year. Anyway, we are really so honored to have this program on our campus every year and have so many people come and really learn. It's not just enjoy what we hear, but really learn what we're going to hear. And I know that's going to be the same thing this year. Thanks to you, Bob, in putting this on. I'm also very proud to say that Bob is now us. Bob has a courtesy appointment in the Honors College here, and how fitting for our honors students. So we are thrilled, and I'm not sure that means you get the place free because you're part of us or not, but we'll look into that. Anyway, thank you for coming. Thank you for coming to the university. I'm going to give you about a 1-minute overview of this university. For those of you who aren't aware of it, we are part of the University of South Florida, an AAU Global Research University, one of the top 71 universities in the nation by becoming a member of the Association of American Universities. We are in Tampa, we are in St. Petersburg, and we are here. We are the smallest one here, but we always say we are the best because we so love it here. It is such a very special place where we have students that we know, faculty that we know, staff that we know. It's a very family kind of an organization. And we have all of the offerings of a major research university, the USF, and we can offer students entry into 220 different majors. So if a student says, well, I'm not going to South Florida, Sarasota-Manatee because they only have 40 majors. Yes, we have 40 full majors here, but we have access to 220 majors, and students can come for their first 2 years, live in our gorgeous new dorm, which is Atala Hall. You might wonder why it's Atala Hall. I'm going to tell you very quickly, because Paul Kirchman's here, who was part of naming it. Atala is a butterfly that was thought to be going extinct in Florida, and it turned out it isn't extinct. It's really building up, and we saw all around the vegetation here, the Atala butterfly. It's a beautiful little black and red butterfly, and we said that's the perfect name for our residence hall for our students. So we have 200 students here now. We would like 200 more for next fall to replace these if they won't graduate because they came in mostly as freshmen, but we'd like to keep it full. So many opportunities here for our students, and it's a very exciting place. Every year we add more and more majors, and I'm going to tell you one that's really exciting, and that's where we're partnering with the Tampa campus in doing aerospace engineering. How appropriate for this campus, right across from the airport, the fastest growing airport in the world. So this is something that's very unique for our campus, and our campus otherwise has, of course, has the business degrees, the arts and sciences, the behavior and community science degrees, but many of them. So this is really, I'm advertising for our campus, but it's a very special place that we all enjoy, and this kind of a gathering is really so important to have here and so valuable to bring in citizens, but mostly, Bob, to hear what it is you and your colleagues have to tell us. Very, very important information. So thank you for taking your time to be with us. Thank you for being here, and I hope you enjoy the day. I know if you have a chance, walk around. This is our new building. We're so proud of. Last year when you were here, it wasn't done. It's done. You can walk in and see what it looks like on the main floor and what the students have. So if you got a couple minutes after lunch, take a tour. It's really a very, very interesting. Now what we have to do is get our next building, which is a nursing STEM building. So we keep going. We're ambitious here, and we're very excited about being here, and we're really, really so pleased that you're doing this again, Bob, with us. So thank you, and thanks for being here. And I'm sorry I went on so long. I guess I have to go do it.
Okay, and before we really get started, just want to remind you, February 12th at Michael's on East will be our 5th anniversary party and our annual Climate Champions Awards. So I hope you'll write down that date. And April 2nd, right here, will be Hurricane Day 2025, and we hope you'll all join us for that. Okay, can we start the conference?
Boy, oh boy, so look at this picking up, guys.
We're standing here at Ground Zero, where at 8:30 p.m. on October 9th, Hurricane Milton came roaring ashore as a Category 3 hurricane, destroying thousands of homes along the southwest Florida coast, the 3rd hurricane in just 60 days, including Helene and Debbie, which preceded it. Hundreds of homes have been destroyed, hundreds of cars destroyed, and many lives have been changed for the decades ahead. What is going to happen in the future with our residential real estate on these barrier islands that we're here to protect the mainland from storm surges is now in question. How do we move into the future and build a sustainable society in the face of increasing impacts from hurricane storm surges and sea level rise? If the trifecta of hurricanes wasn't enough, ruining our residential communities, our business communities have been seriously impacted by these 3 storms, many of which are still closed today. It's going to be a long time before we get back to normal. In June of 2012, where I stand today, the water was about 8 to 10 feet deep right here in this place. Tropical Storm Debbie struck this area, and the beach was all the way back to where the waves were hitting that building in the background. This groin is the result of a collaboration between the town of Longboat Key, the CAC, and Olson Engineering of Jacksonville, Florida. It's really interesting, but you see it says mooring prohibited here. There was a reason for that. This groin goes about 7 or 8 feet below us, and when it was built, the whole thing was above the water. And then the sand started flowing through and accreting against these blocks, but the public would come and tie their boats up here, and we were worried that the boats would hit the groin and damage it and also sink the boats. But not anymore. I look at the sand we have. This is an excellent example of how, if we do the right things, it's not just about losses, it's about preventing the losses before they happen. In the background, you see our iconic Van Wezel Performing Arts Center Hall that was severely damaged by sea level rise and the impacts from storm surge from Hurricane Milton. Fortunately, restoration at the Bay Park has helped create a resilient shoreline. As we look at the improvements in the first phase of the bay restoration, what we see is an elevated field right here. And by the way, this field has been elevated somewhere between 4 and 6 feet. In a way, it acts as a barrier to storm surge moving inland from the bay. So this is a real climate adaptation. It's beautiful, and it's providing many benefits to the citizens of Sarasota. Working with private foundations and policymakers in the future, the goal of the Climate Adaptation Center is to speed climate adaptation because it will lower the risk and pay dividends for our future. Ladies and gentlemen, Stephanie Carroll.
This is tough. Okay. 7 weeks ago today, Helene's storm surge violently pushed 2 to 3 feet of water through our one-story home on Siesta Key, destroying much in its path. We loved that home. We lived in it for 20 years, and we were going to grow old together there. But life changed that. It was inconceivable. Within 24 hours, we had no place to live. We weren't sure what we were going to do. Could we afford to repair? Would we be able to, under the FEMA 50% rule? Would they force us to tear down and build up? At this point in our lives, could we take the financial burden of building a home? We had so many questions. Would there be more hurricanes? Would this happen more often? Was this the new normal? The only thing we knew to do to answer these questions was to find people that have the facts and the information that we needed and that we trusted. And one of the first people we reached out to was Bob Bunting, NCAC. He did not hesitate to meet with us immediately. And the thing that I appreciated about Bob's perspective was it wasn't about the doom and gloom of the water rising and the climate warming, which are all true things, but Bob had us look at it differently, that with the information we had, we could create new possibilities for a future for ourselves. I remember just 2 weeks before meeting with Bob, standing and looking at the pile of growing trash and debris from our home, thinking, this is my life. How did this happen? How did my life get out by the road in a trash pile? But after talking to Bob and other sources in our community, I now realize that that wasn't my life out by the trash pile. That was just part of my life story. And with the support of CAC in our community, we now have an opportunity to create a new life story with a better ending. I appreciate and I'm so grateful for each of you for being here today to help be part of this conversation that will help our community be stronger and be more resilient. Thank you.
Took a lot for her to say that. Really appreciate it. But we have all been touched in one way or another by these storms and by the ravages of a warming climate. And so today we'll be talking about climate and human health with the idea of, instead of reacting to events, to get in front of them, where every dollar we invest in prevention is worth $15 on the backside and a better lifestyle for all of us. It's now my pleasure to introduce our Day 1 moderator, David Kotok, who's a personal friend. He's one of the smartest guys I've ever met on so many topics at one time. And of course, he has been involved with the CAC before it even started. He and I were doing conferences together, and one day we just looked at each other. He said, let's go, let's do the CAC. So it's with his background, and I thought this was the perfect time to have David be our Day 1 moderator. David?
Thank you very much, Bob. Karen, it's nice to be back. Like Mark Twain said, rumors of my demise are exaggerated. Let me see if we have that first slide. Yeah. George Santayana, over a century ago, a wonderful poet, said those who don't remember or who forget their history are condemned to repeat it. Profound words. That's the new book. It's taken us 4 years. There is an author's book card, because I don't want to spend more than 2 minutes talking about the book. These are out on the reception. There's a website, a QR code. It'll tell you about the book. It's taken us 4 years. We started, my wonderful co-authors and I. Without them, the book would not have been completed. And we were looking at epidemics, pandemics, and plagues. And what were the economic responses? Inflation, wages, asset prices, recessions, depressions, booms. We did not go looking for climate change. Climate change, in the research of this book, for this book, found us. We didn't go looking for it. This was an exercise in economics and finance. And we looked at 314 named epidemics, pandemics, plagues that we could find in the recorded history of the human being, approximately 4,000 years, from the plague in Athens to COVID. Climate change found us. Now, I only have about 8 minutes, so I'm going to extract from one chapter of this book, and then the rest of you can read the whole book, and I invite you to do so. If you look at that date, you will see the timing of the third pandemic. 3 pandemics impacted the Roman Empire. 2 of the 3, for sure, had climate change characteristics. It's a question about the third one. What happened in those years? 2 volcanoes, 2 years of volcanic eruption, created a cloud. The cloud reflected the sun. The sunlight, therefore, was diminished. The planet cooled. How do we know all that? Because in the research for our book, we looked at all the ice cores, and we matched them against plagues and epidemics. So we have data. The volcanoes reduced, over time, the temperature of the planet by a little over 2 degrees centigrade. Now, you will hear people who will tell you 2 degrees of temperature change is not a lot. Happens all the time. Well, it doesn't happen all the time, but it does happen. And this time it happened because of these volcanoes. Separate eruptions, 2 years, cloud cover, temperature went down 2 degrees. What did that do? That's a flea. It's a rat flea. And what it does is feed primarily on the blood of rats. Why rats? Why are rats so important? Because in the Roman Empire, everything moved by ship, and rats are in the holds of the ships. So if you bring a boatload of grain from one place to another in a ship, you also bring the rats. And when you bring the rats, you bring the fleas. What do we know about this particular flea? This flea is very sensitive to temperature change. And when the temperature cooled for the planet by 2 degrees, the flea flourished. Did it ever? So the flea, flourishing, feeding on the rats, killed more rats than normal with a bacteria, and that's the vector for the bacteria. The name of the bacteria is Yersinia pestis. Yersin was the French scientist, and hence it has his name. It's a bacteria. And the flea is the vector. The rat is the target. But what happens on a ship when so many rats are being killed? Because the flea is flourishing and biting them, and the flea feeds on blood. And when it does, it regurgitates part of the blood as part of the digestive process. More fleas, more dead rats. What does the flea do? It bites the human being. It bites the sailors on the ships. When the sailors land, they are carrying the bacteria. It started with 2 degrees of temperature change. The plague of Justinian, which is the 3rd major pandemic in Roman history, and you can read Gibbon's book and the decline and fall of the Roman empires, and you can read about all the legions and all the wars and all the emperors. That plague killed half the population of the Roman Empire, decimated it, killed 1/4 of the population of the world, started with 2 volcanoes, 2 degrees of temperature change. The population of the world fell so much that there was a mini ice age which followed. Why? Because 1/4 of the population stopped cutting trees, stopped chopping down forests, and the forests started to rebuild and suck carbon out of the atmosphere, put it back into a form. The plague of Justinian was the end of the Roman Empire, never recovered. What happened to the bacteria? It spread, it continued for 200 to 300 years. Now we then had the Dark Ages for 400 years, and it resurfaced in a new mutation at a time in Europe which we now call the Black Death, which killed 1/3 of the population of the world. When we started to work on this book, we did not know about the volcanoes. We knew about the emperor. We knew about how he debased his currency, had a big inflation, lost wars, couldn't pay his soldiers, had turmoil. We didn't know about the volcanoes. That's a mistake. In the epilogue or the 2nd edition, there will be an entire additional section on climate change, because what we have found is climate change is part of this history with disease. We're going to talk about that all day. Let me call Bob Bunting back up here, but let me plant a seed. Ladies and gentlemen, we are the volcanoes. We are the volcanoes. 2 degree temperature change kills 1/4 of the population of the world. Now, some people would say, yeah, well, that was a long time ago, before Edward Jenner had a vaccine, before there was research about smallpox and variolation, before Louis Pasteur helped develop a fight against bacteria. The flea doesn't know, doesn't study the history. The mutation of disease, which is going to get a lot of conversation today, doesn't pay any attention to those statements. We are the volcanoes, whether the temperature goes up 2 degrees or down 2 degrees. Today, we're the volcanoes. The heat is on, and here's Bob Bunting.
All I can say is he's a hard act to follow.